Davos 2026 wasn't a future of growth conference. It was a stress test for alliances, for trade rules, and for the belief that international order still runs on predictable norms. And the headline hovering the mountain like an unavoidable push notification was this: power is back, and the world is shifting its language from rules to leverage. Also, one more thing: Davos may be the only place on the earth where a peace plan, an AI revolution, and a pair of sunglasses can all move markets in the same week. The World Economic Forum framed Davos under the theme, the spirit of dialogue. But it wasn't dialogue in the warm and fuzzy sense. It was dialogue in the sense of, let's talk, because we may not agree on anything next year. So I will break Davos into three lenses: power, money, and technology. The most serious thread at Davos was this: are we in an evolving order or a rupture? Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney argued the rules-based order is fading and middle powers must stop acting like it still works as advertised. His core point: integration is being weaponized, tariffs become leverage, supply chains become vulnerabilities, finance becomes coercion. French President Emmanuel Macron reinforced the warning, describing a drift towards a world without rules and return of imperial ambitions. Finance leaders like ECB's President Christine Lagarde and WTO's Chief Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala pushed back on the rupture framing. The message was pragmatic: the system is shifting fast, so build resilience, reduce dependencies, and strengthen buffers, rather than declaring the order is dead. Here is my take: I lean towards a rupture because states are already behaving like uncertainty is permanent. Markets may get soothing language, but policy is moving towards resilience and strategic diversification as the new definition of strength. So what? If you are investing, expanding a business, or planning a second base, assume more friction and more leverage politics and diversify exposure before it's forced on you. Europe's emotional flashpoint this year was Greenland, because it wasn't just territory, it was trust. Even if the immediate flare-up is contained, Europe's question is still, what about next time? Here is the deeper point. Alliances survive disagreements, but they struggle when partners stop being predictable. So Davos' mood wasn't anti-American. It was more subtle and more consequential. Europe accelerating strategic autonomy, not as an ideology, but as risk management. And yes, this is where Davos becomes a theater. Macron delivered one of the toughest messages while wearing aviator sunglasses indoors, sparking Top Gun jokes and reported jump for the highway maker. Europe heard, world without rules, but markets heard, nice glasses. So what if your portfolio, supply chain, or global plans assume a smooth transatlantic access, price in more EU self-reliance and higher policy volatility? Canada was one of the most interesting voices, not because it's a superpower, but because it represents the middle power dilemma. How do you survive when the world turns transactional? Carney's Davos speech even drew a rare standing ovation. Trump's response was typical Trump, not a detailed rebuttal, but pressure. He posted on Truth Social, shared an AI image of Canada under the US flag, and then made the headline threat: 100% tariff if Canada deepens trade ties with China. Davos gave Carney applause, but Trump sent him the invoice. This isn't just trade policy, it's a message. Alignment now has a price tag. So the takeaway is simple: US-Canada stays deeply integrated, but Canada's room to maneuver is shrinking, and the cost of policy independence is rising. So what? If you are aiming for a US green card, the long-term strategy might just be move to Canada, apparently the 51st state. Just joking, no offense intended. AI at Davos wasn't framed as gadget story. It was framed as infrastructure, and infrastructure is power. Jensen Huang described AI as multi-layer build-out: energy, chips, cloud models, and applications, already triggering what he called the largest infrastructure build-out in human history. Now, that's the strategic point. Countries and companies that control AI infrastructure will shape productivity, security, and industrial competitiveness for the next decade. Elon Musk pushed the abundance narrative, AI and robotics boosting output at historic scale. But he added the hard constraint. Energy becomes the bottleneck because AI at scale needs massive power. And then came the classic Musk moment, a near-term prediction that AI could surpass humans, exact timing aside, designed to shake the room. But the most important line wasn't even about capability, it was about distribution. Larry Fink, chairman and CEO of BlackRock, put it simply, the biggest political risk in AI isn't what it can do, it's who benefits. If the gains accrue to a narrow group while jobs, wages, and opportunity lag, governments will be forced to respond. So what? If you are investing or hiring, treat AI like infrastructure. Track compute, energy, and regulation, and plan for workforce transition, not just productivity upside. One quiet shift at Davos. Middle powers are trying to shape the playbook instead of just reacting. Khan's message was clear. Don't compete to be the most accommodating to a hegemon. Coordinate to create leverage. And you can see Canada building that narrative with other middle powers like Australia. So if you are watching the New World Order, don't only watch Washington and Beijing. Watch the middle. Canada-Australia coordination, Singapore-style plurilateral alliances, and Gulf states using capital and diplomacy. Because that's how leverage gets built in a world turning transactional. So what? If you operate globally, track this middle power coalitions. They can quietly reshape standards, corridors, and deal terms. Absence at Davos are signals, sometimes louder than speeches. Keir Starmer stayed away, with UK officials framing it as a choice to focus on priorities at home. Strategically, it was a smart move. He didn't want to be caught in the crossfire between the US and Europe at a moment when transatlantic relationship is visibly tense. Giorgia Meloni was widely expected to skip Davos as Italy navigated sensitive positioning around US initiatives. Her absence still felt like a missing headline. When Trump, Musk, and Macron are in the same alpine bubble, Davos almost expects Meloni to appear at least once. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi did not attend, and India was represented by ministers. Deliberate, not accidental. It signals India wants a presence without being boxed in someone else's narrative. The bigger point, in a fragmented world, attendance is increasingly about alignment risk, not just schedules. Now, India's Davos positioning was sophisticated, not AI hype, but AI diffusion, deployment at real scale. India became a global outlier in mobile internet, not by building the best phone, but by building the cheapest and the most scalable access layer. The signal from Davos is that India wants AI to follow the same playbook: affordable compute, wide distribution, real-world usage. Ashwani Vaishnav's point was simple. AI leadership won't be decided only by who has the biggest model. It will be decided by who can make AI affordable and widely usable. India is expanding capacity, including access to 38,000 GPUs and pairing it with government work on issues like bias and deepfakes. And Geeta Gopinath added the long-term reality check. Pollution may be a bigger drag on India's growth than tariffs, which is awkward because you can scale GPUs in a quarter, but you can't download clean air. And now we have to talk about the most Davos moment of the Davos, the Gaza Board of Peace. It's built to start with Gaza and then expand into other global conflicts. And several US allies worry it's being positioned as a parallel power center to the UN. Even Elon Musk couldn't resist mocking the branding, joking about whether it was peace or PIECE, as in a piece of other countries. Trump is positioned as chair for life, built to outlast his presidency. And when leaders start designing lifetime roles, critics will inevitably ask whether they are comfortable letting go of power anytime, anywhere. Then comes the second layer, the billionaires' club structure. $1 billion contribution can secure a permanent seat. So influence is bought with money, not credibility or accountability. That also means that controversial states like Pakistan and Belarus can purchase long-term influence and a voice in setting terms. Early sign-ups include Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan, Bahrain, Turkey, Hungary, Pakistan, Indonesia, Morocco, and even Belarus. Meanwhile, major Western democracies have held back. France said no, Italy cited constitutional constraints, and Britain and Germany have stayed cautious and non-committable. The deeper analytical point, it isn't just a peace initiative, it's a new governance model, centralized authority at the top and pay-to-play influence underneath. If Davos 2026 was a preview, here are the 5 watch points. Tariff becomes a default tool. Trade is increasingly framed as economic security, so restrictions and pressure tactics feel routine, not exceptional. Europe doubles down on strategic autonomy, faster coordination, higher defense spendings, and bigger contingency plans to reduce reliance on others. Canada's middle power strategy gets stress tested. When major powers use tariff as leverage, Ottawa has less room to balance and must pick sides more carefully. AI governance turns from ethics to competitiveness. The focus shifts to jobs, wages, training, inequality, and AI as industrial policy. Rule-based order becomes a slogan, not a guarantee. Countries planned for permanent uncertainty, hedging partners, building redundancies, and acting more transactionally. And here is a notable Davos dynamic. Despite his power play, most leaders didn't confront Trump. They managed him. The clearest pushback came from Mark Carney warning of rupture in the rules-based order, Emmanuel Macron describing a slide towards a world without rules, and Gavin Newsom, the Democrat governor of California, who turned his Davos trip into a running fight with Trump machine, even claiming his slot was blocked as he openly toys with 2028 Trump. Now it's your turn. Comment one topic: US-Europe divide, AI versus jobs, Canada-US reset, or American imperialism. Top pick becomes the next decode. Subscribe to Global Moves beyond the headlines.